This is Beyond the Culture. Let's go. I'm so excited that you took the time to join us on the next episode of Beyond the Culture. This is the show where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. I'm your host, Dr. David Walker. All right. So today on the show, I have an outstanding guest. Her name is Star Bobatoon Esquire. And Star is an award-winning international speaker, a presentation coach and trainer. She has over a decade of experience as a performer on stage, TV, and the big screen. And then she has another decade of experience as an employment law attorney. Star is a trained speaker. She has trained with the world-renowned motivation speaker, Les Brown. She is the author of 3 books, and we'll talk about those books a little bit later. Star Bobatoon. Welcome, Star.
Hey there, David. How are you? Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we are excited to have you on the show today, and we're going to have a great conversation. And so, I want to start here in our conversation today because, you and I met not too long ago. And when we met, you told me something about your past, and I want to start there.
Okay.
You told me that you were a star child actress.
Yes.
And I want to go into that backstory of your life. You had some major roles on TV and the stage. So take us back to that time when Star Bobatoon was the young child actress.
Well, you know what? I remember it was a Tuesday. It was a Tuesday night. I'm home with my mom. I've been an actress for a couple of years. I am about 15 years old. I'm 15 or 16 years old. I've been acting since I was 7. I've done plays. I've done lots of small things, afternoon specials, a couple things like that. And so it's Tuesday, and I get a phone call from a friend of the family, Chip Fields. She calls us up. She tells my mom, "Hey, can you get Star here tomorrow?" All right. My mom is like, when Chip calls you and says, "Can you do something?" My mom is like, "Yeah, we'll get that done." And so Thursday, I'm on a plane going. No, it was Wednesday. Wednesday, I'm on a plane going to Los Angeles.
Okay.
My mom's just, "Go, babe, go. Auntie Chip's gonna take care of you." And so I get on a plane and I meet with Chip, and she's telling me about this audition. And the audition is for a TV series called Palmerstown.
Okay.
It's produced by Alex Haley and Norman Lear. It was pretty much Alex Haley's childhood. It was the story of his childhood. And I was going to play his sister. And quiet as it's kept, David, they had already booked Janet Jackson to play the role.
Wow.
They already booked Janet Jackson. I mean, the contract is with the attorney, is with the agents, right? And so, but Chip is like, "You know what? I got an idea. You got to see this girl." And so I come in and I do my audition. I audition with Bill Duke.
Okay.
If you know who that is.
Sure.
And Alex Haley was there and Norman Lear was there. It's very exciting for a 16-year-old. And I go and I do my thing. And then as I'm leaving, I hear them tell Chip, "Make sure she doesn't leave town." So bye. That was on a Friday. So by the time Monday morning came, I had the lead role in that TV show. And then I mentioned I then had to face Janet. We met very shortly after that. It's very, very awkward. Very awkward. But now you get to look at Janet's career and she gets to thank me for that.
It usually goes that way.
Yes. And so that was probably the pinnacle of my success, having the lead role on a TV series for primetime television. But it was, on top of years of being an actress, being on stages. I like to say I've been on stage my whole life, whether it was television shows, because I've had a couple of other series that I was involved in, after school specials, commercials, stage. I've done it all. And I was an actress until I was about 18 or 19 years old. See, what people don't know
Mm-hmm.
about the acting is that having a child actor is stressful for the family,
Wow.
because there's a lot of focus on the one child.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little less focus on the other children. And then it was like my career was directing everything else in the family. There was just a lot of tension on there, and I could feel that tension. And I know my mom tried to hide it from me, but I could feel it. So when I turned 18, I decided I was done. You know,
Okay.
I was never going to act again. I just turned my back on it. And I know that a lot of people do that exact same thing. They say they take their gift,
Mm-hmm.
they take their talents, right? They take their passion and they just sort of pack them up in a little bag or a little bit box, and they take them and they go ahead and put them on the shelf so that they could make peace, so that they don't harm other people, so that they can keep the love.
Mm.
And that was pretty much my story. I thought that my family would be better if I hid my talents.
Gotcha.
And David, I did that for 25 years.
Wow.
For 25 years before I got back onto the stage.
Well, we're going to get to that part of your life, you getting back onto the stage, but I want to go back because you threw out a couple of names there, and they are really notable in history. But I just want to make sure that the audience didn't miss them. They heard them, but I just want to make sure that we identify these people. One, you mentioned Chip Fields, and
Yes.
many of us would know Chip. If we don't know Chip Fields, many people definitely know her daughter, Kim Fields,
Right.
who was a well-known actress. And matter of fact, I even think now she's directing. We know her from Living Singles and other things like that. That's Kim Fields. Then you mentioned Bill Dukes. And Bill Dukes is another uh, director.
Right.
What was I watching the other day? And he was the director. Oh, it was Sister Act.
Okay. Okay. And most people remember Bill from Car Wash. You remember that?
Yes, yes. And also he was in the show which the movie with Schwarzenegger, Terminator. I think
Yes.
that
Yes.
was
Yes.
he was in
Predator.
that. Predator. That's right, Predator. And of course, you mentioned the legendary Janet Jackson, who owes her entire career, according to Star Bobatoon, to Star. And guess what? That's how we're going to look at it. You know, we're
How we're
definitely
gonna
going
look at it.
to your story will stick to it.
I saw Janet a couple of years ago, so she's my age, so she's over 50, and she
Okay,
was tearing it up.
I'm
And
sure.
I'm like, you go, sister. All right.
But let me ask you this, because those were and still are three prominent African Americans in the business, in the TV business, movies business, stage production. All of that, they're very prominent. But I want to ask you, uh, what was your feelings back then, and even you can express it now, about African American participation in TV? Were there a lot of us in TV? I mean, I know the answer to that, but I just want you to tell me what was your perception of the lack of African Americans in TV back in that day?
So I'm sitting in the office of oh, I can't remember the agency, something Morris, not Philip Morris, because that's cigarettes, but a very famous um, agency in
Hmm.
Hollywood.
Okay.
And I'm on the TV show, and we're looking for we're shopping a new agent for me. And I was told that I was too dark.
Mm.
I was told that I was too dark, and they weren't going to take me as a client because they wanted the lighter African Americans, when they were using African Americans at all. The show that I did with Alex Haley was it was one of the few predominantly Black casts.
Okay.
at that time. So we're talking about the 80s.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, we're talking about the 80s. It was one of the few where, the characters are human beings and not caricatures.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and he had, the crew were the preeminent director of photography, assistant directors. They were almost all people of color.
Okay.
And I want, the thing is, I was so young that I didn't notice. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Sure.
I was so young that I didn't notice. I had done other things, but I wasn't like racially aware.
Right.
But I know that as I got older, I remember that. I remember, we had some of the best Black directors
Mm.
on that show that I still see their names today. And like I said, I did not recognize it at the time. Only, now that I'm older and I can see that, I see the disparities. I actually became a lawyer, and I did a lot of diversity law as well. And so, okay, so now diversity is a big deal in my head, but at 16, it wasn't.
And that's not a surprise, because many probably would say that same exact thing at a younger age. You were not as cognizant of racial issues and racial challenges. All you probably knew or understood that you were just, acting, trying to get a role, doing what maybe you loved at that time. So the racial disparities, the racial challenges probably, as you said, did not impact you like they do once you get older. And I would agree with that, because I would say that similar to me. It wasn't until you get older and then you start processing life and looking back, and you said, there was a lot of prejudice and disenfranchisement and overlooking of our people. And that's why we don't have, when we look back in history, we don't see us represented as well, especially in television. Yeah. So that's interesting about your past. And I really wanted to get to that, because when you told me about it, I thought that was like, phenomenal. Actually, knowing someone who had experience with, TV and stage and production. But I want to move to something that also, and I found this out by doing my homework. And you had a young child. I want you to take me back to your child. You had a young son.
I have a son.
You have a
I have
son
a son and a daughter.
and a son and a daughter. But on as I was going through your website, you talked about your son who had an incurable disease. And I'm going to try my best to pronounce it. Duchenne muscular dystrophy.
Duchenne muscular dystrophy.
Duchenne. Um, and I had never heard of this. I had never heard of it. I was not aware of it. And then as I was on the website looking it up, and I'm finding that, maybe it might be rare in some cases, but there's several families who have experienced it. And I believe that it targets males versus females.
Exactly.
So tell us about this Duchenne muscular dystrophy. How did it affect you, and how did it affect your son?
Well, let me say this. I'm sitting on the couch with my husband. The year is 2001. It's 2001. Okay. Sitting on the couch with my husband. We're watching something mindless on TVs. I'm wrapped up in his arms and it's all lovely. A commercial comes on and he puts the TV on mute. And then he says, "The doctor called today." And immediately I am tense, I am quiet, and I'm still. Because you see, David, 4 months earlier, we started taking our son, Hurricane, to every doctor we could find. We're trying to find out what is wrong with this boy. Why is it that he runs so much slower than the other kids? Why is it that he falls so often? Why is it that while other kids are running up the stairs, my son at 5 years old is still going up the stairs one together? What's wrong with my boy? 4 weeks earlier, he had a muscle biopsy to see if he had Duchenne muscular dystrophy. This is a muscle disorder that causes the muscles in young boys to get weaker as they get older. It is a debilitating, relentless disease for which there is no cure. The doctor told us she would come to our house if there was something to worry about. Come to our house in 2001. So I'm sitting there with my husband and I'm not saying a word. And in that silence, I can feel him tighten his arms around me. And he says, she'll be here tomorrow. And I start struggling and pulling and I'm yelling and I'm crying. I don't want her here. I don't want that woman in my house. I'm not letting her in my house. And I'm just crying until I'm exhausted. And I collapse into his arms. I stopped crying. I stopped yelling. I stopped cursing. Did I mention I was cursing?
You did.
And in that moment, I knew that my life would never be the same. Mm-hmm. My son was 5 years old. Whatever dreams that we had for him, they were wiped away. The prognosis at that time was that he would stop walking by the time he was 10. The prognosis at that time was that he would lose his life before he was 20 years old. Mm. The dreams were gone. And we had to adjust to a new reality. But you know what? Kevin Costner has that movie, Tin Cup, and he says that in life, when these defining moments come, you have a choice in whether you define the moment or the moment defines you. And I'm going to be honest with you, David, the moment defined me. Mm. I was upset. I was mad. I was bitter. God and I didn't have a conversation for a very long time because I was just upset about this. But in one of the experiences I had with my son, I wrote a story about it, sent it to a friend who sent it to a friend who sent it to another friend. And I ended up being invited to speak at a conference for parents of children with DMD. And that sort of reignited my spark. It kind of pulled me back onto the stage as a speaker. Is one of the reasons that I became a speaker. And so I can look at that now and say, okay, I'm defining the moment because this has led me to do work that I absolutely enjoy. And as far as my son, he is 24 years old. So there you go with prognosis. He's 24 years old. He's been in the wheelchair since he was 9. He has no cognitive issues. It's all physical. He's a happy boy. He's very smart. You know, he went through high school. He did some college, but considering we don't know how long he's going to be here, our focus is for him to enjoy his life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To enjoy his life. It's the same thing we did when he was little. We had him in soccer. We had him in baseball. We had him doing art. We had him doing everything he could do while he could do it. And that was the biggest thing, to do what he could do while he could do it. And now, you know, he loves to cook. He has aides that help him. He will cook the craziest, most outrageous things, but he loves that. He's living an okay life. He's happy.
Wow. That's awesome. And obviously that experience moved you to put pen to paper and you wrote a book about it.
I did. My first book was called I Hate Muscular Dystrophy. Yeah, I Hate Muscular Dystrophy, Loving a Child with a Life-Altering Disease. And it was a book of hope.
Okay.
Pretty much for other parents. You know, once you get that diagnosis, you know, there's a nosedive that happens. And the book was to help parents move past that, Yeah. And so I had 4 points in there that were STAR because my name is Star.
Sure.
And the first one was start with your attitude. It's always start with your attitude about the situation. The T was to take time for the tears.
Okay.
Because this is a big deal. You're gonna be sad about it, right? The third was to assess what you can do. There's a lot of stuff we can no longer do, but there was stuff that we can do. And the R was for, I'm gonna remember what the R was for. The R was for, well, the idea is to bring it together.
Okay.
You know, to have fun and enjoy the life that you have. So that was that. I haven't looked at that book in a long time. Thanks for bringing it up.
Sure. Um, Now, you also mentioned a couple things. Now, you mentioned public speaking, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. But there's also another part of your story that you shared with me. But I also saw you on stage to tell this story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this was the story of you, because, I introduced you as a lawyer,
Right.
Star Bobatoon, Esquire.
That's right.
But I heard your story on stage, YouTube story, and I think you might have been an assistant at a law firm, a clerk, an aide. You could tell us what you were exactly, but you had an issue with a contractor, and then you had an engagement with the law firm, and that led you to becoming a lawyer. Just kind of go tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, my husband and I had just bought our first house. I was working as a legal secretary in a law firm in Los Angeles. We bought our first house, dog of a house, let me tell you, David. It was a dog, but you know what? We were young and in love, and we had some plans. Oh, we had some plans. We were going to take off the roof, add a second story, and I'm going to remind you that this is in beautiful Southern California, where it's a typical 30, 72 degrees outside. We take the roof off the house, and David, what do you think happens?
It rained.
It doesn't rain, David, it monsoons. I'm telling you.
When it doesn't rain in sunny South California, right?
It doesn't rain in California unless you take the roof off your house. Then it's going to rain for 3 days.
Wow.
3 days it rains. The house was completely destroyed. And we fired the contractor because duh. And the contractor sued us. She wanted to get paid, even though she ruined our house, right? And just for an inventory for everyone, we are penniless because every dime we have is in that house. We're now homeless because that was our home, and now we're being sued. It was what was I saying? When it rains, it
monsoons.
Thank you very much. When it rains, it monsoons. And then, so here's the deal. I work in a law firm. I work for a lawyer. I'm sorry, I work for a partner in the law firm. Thank you very much. So I go to Tom. Tom is my boss, and I'm like, help, and I'm thinking he's gonna give me the phone number of an attorney who can help me, or maybe take the case himself. That's not what happens. Instead, he walks me into the law library, tells me to read a book and write a memo. He tells me to handle it myself.
Wow.
And I did. Of course, I looked at him like he was crazy, and here's the deal. I started crying in that library when he said that. And he did the most amazing thing, David. He put his hand on my shoulder. He looked me in the eye and he said, I believe in you. And that was enough for me to stop crying and to listen to what he said. And Tom walked me step by step through handling this case myself.
Okay.
And I love the work of it, and I won the case. So that's always nice. I ended up winning the case, but I was so enamored. I was so in love with the process that I went back to school, got my law degree, and I ended up working in the same firm with Tom some years later. But the point is that I wanted to bring up is that power of belief.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because there's so many times that things happen to us, and I think of that especially in these days, in these times, where jobs are lost and houses are foreclosed and schools are closed and people are losing faith, and people are losing hope and belief that things can be better. It's just it's more important now than ever. And like Les Brown says sometimes you have to believe in someone else's belief in you until your own belief kicks in.
Right.
And that's where I was in that moment. Tom believed in me. Everything in my world was falling apart, but someone believed that I could come out of that, that there was good out of that. And I think for everything that we're going through right now, we've got to believe that there is something good that can come out of that. At the time, you know, David, I thought I was adding a second story to my house. I ended up adding a second story to my life.
Wow. That is I mean, that's right on point. And what it shows us is that a lot of times success comes from adversity.
Absolutely.
You know, some people don't understand why they go through certain things, but usually it's designed to make us successful, or at least that's the result of the adversity, is to take that next step and then for us to arrive to where, you know, really where God wants us to be.
I think that is a choice. I think it is a choice. And I believe that you are right. The path is there. But
Hmm.
in every situation, we have the ability to choose the meaning, to
Okay.
choose which way we're going to go. One of the things that I learned as a lawyer is that there are three sides to every story. I know. You heard there were two sides to every story. I'm telling you, there are three sides to every story. There's the plaintiff side, there's the defendant side, and then there are the facts.
Gotcha.
The only truth, David, the only truth are the facts. And the
Hmm.
facts are neither good nor bad. They are the facts.
Right.
We attribute interpretation, we attribute meaning, right? The plaintiff decides that the facts mean this, the defendant decides that the facts mean something else. And so when stuff happens to us, it's neither good nor bad, David. They are facts.
That's
We
right.
get to decide the meaning in those facts. And I think that if we stay steady in faith, if we stay steady in belief, we can always interpret those facts in a way that'll move us forward. And
Mm.
that's what I hope for us. But there's a lot of people, David, who take the very same facts and they interpret them a different way.
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing is, the most powerful thing about what you said is that since you're going to interpret the facts, you might as well interpret them for your benefit.
You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. If it's up to you,
Yeah.
why not go ahead and lean to the left? Why not?
Sure.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sure. Sure. Use it for your own purpose and your own destiny.
Absolutely.
You mentioned another world-renowned name, and I want to now start moving to your career as a public speaker. You mentioned the name Les Brown,
Right.
and you are well a protege, but definitely he's your mentor. Um, and so I think you said you kind of answered this particular question because I was going to say, well, how did you get into public speaking? But I think you said that what happened with your son was also kind of the motivation to you get into public speaking. But in your experience, not only have you worked with Les Brown, you shared the stage with Bryan Singer, Lisa Nichols, Suze Orman, for everyone who knows all these great speakers, motivational speaker. And of course, it says here that you also shared the stage with the forever First Lady, former First Lady Michelle Obama. So talk a little bit about your speaking career and how that's going and what do you focus on when you speak?
Excellent. Excellent. Um, yes. So became a lawyer and all of that. And then life does the things that it does. It do what it do.
Hmm.
And my life fell apart again. And I'm at a point where I'm like, well, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. What do I want to be? And I go to this concert. Girlfriend says, why don't you come to this conference, this feel good conference? And I'm like, I don't want to go because I'm not feeling good, but I'm feeling like crap.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. But she's like, come on and go. And I go to this seminar, right? And it's got all of these great speakers. I
Mhm.
mean, Brian Tracy was there, Michael Gerber was there, Art Linkletter was there. Okay.
Wow.
All of these amazing speakers were there. And as I was sitting there, I decided that's what I wanted to do. I want to be up on that stage. That's what I want. And it's like then, David, I remembered that I used to be an actress.
Okay.
I remember that I used to be on the stage. I remember that that is where I had love, where I had passion. Yes, of course I'm going to be on the stage, but I happen to be a very high energy kind of chick, very animated. And as I was looking at these speakers, I'm looking at them going, Art Linkletter. I don't know. We're a little different, right?
Right,
And
right.
then, so I'm wondering if there's room for someone like me. And then onto the stage comes world-renowned motivational speaker Les Brown. And you've seen Les. Les is high energy. He is animation. He is stories. He is bigger than life. And I'm like, that's what I want to be.
Okay.
That's who I want to be when I grow up. I want to be that guy. And so bought into his program and pretty much stalked him for until he gave me a job.
Okay.
I just stalked him. I was like, wherever he was, I was there. How can I help? Can I be of assistance? Can I help you out? And eventually I ended up running his speaker training program. And I did that for 3 years. And I hosted his Monday night motivational call.
Okay.
So yes, I was trained by Les. I worked for Les. I traveled with Les. I spoke on stages with Les Brown, and it was the most incredible experience because he's he's a legend, right?
Mm,
And I'm the type of person, I'm gonna learn when you teach me something, but I'm also gonna be watching you.
right.
Right. And all the time I got to travel with him, like he would want all of his celebrity speakers to sit up front. I'd be in the back. I'd be in the back and I'd be looking at him and what he's doing to the audience and how
Okay.
the audience is reacting to him.
Right.
Right. So I'm just pulling in all of this information. And then I went on to work for a speaker training company and ended up being their top speaker in terms of presentation and in terms of sales. And I know it was because I was bringing all of that. I'm bringing everything I have as a lawyer as far as analytical thinking, right?
Hmm.
And I'm bringing everything I learned from Les Brown as far as being a motivational speaker, and I'm marrying those two things, and I became number one. And since then, I move on to do keynotes. I do a lot of training. And one of the things that brings me the most joy now, David, is that I get to train speakers. I get to train speakers and coaches, entrepreneurs, business owners. I go into corporation a lot, but I get to train people on speaking.
Okay.
But I just want to say that it's deeper than that. Communication is so important. Poor communication equals poor results. And
Right.
that's in our conversations, our relationships, and our businesses. So communication itself is very, very important. But here's the other thing. There are so many people that are not using their voices.
Okay.
Right? They're not telling their stories. They're not getting up and speaking to promote their businesses or even to promote themselves because they have shut down their voices. I shut down my voice for 25 years, David, for 25 years.
Mm,
So speaking to me, being on a stage and speaking to me is not just about me providing information for people. It's about an expression of who I am.
okay.
And my greatest joy is to help others fulfill that expression of who they are.
Hmm.
I think everyone has a voice, everyone has a story, and I believe that the name of my company is Own Your Stage, because I believe that at every point we are on a stage. Anytime you speak, it's a performance, and any place you speak is a stage. And I help people illuminate their voices on every stage of their lives.
Okay.
So that's my speaker story, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm training people, and I absolutely love it.
I like what you said about, you know, you said a lot of people kind of shut down their voice and really that's how you communicate and you communicate through your story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's probably what many of us are missing is the fact that we're not telling our story. We're not allowing our voices to be heard. And really, that's the best way for your voice to be heard is through your story.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so you take the time, you coach people, you train people. I think I also had down here the Star Performance Coaching Program, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. And but you also mentioned something the other day in the conversation we had. You were talking about diversity and inclusion.
Right,
Talk a
right.
little bit more about that and how that plays into what you're doing.
Well, because I'm a trainer, I've trained on 40 topics, David. I've trained on 40 topics. That doesn't make me an expert in 40 topics. It does make me an expert trainer.
Okay.
And one of the topics that I trained, especially when I just made the transition from lawyer, was diversity and inclusion.
Okay.
I was a diversity lawyer for several years, and I've done a lot of training in diversity and inclusion. And because of this year and everything that has happened this year, I've been tapped to do a lot of training in diversity. Actually, I did unconscious bias just this morning, and so I'm doing a lot of these trainings. But since I was a lawyer, I've done a lot of training and education in communication.
Okay.
And what I'm finding as I'm doing my trainings now in diversity is how important communication is. How important it is to be able to communicate. Like I said, poor communication equals poor results. Poor communication equals poor diversity, right?
Mm,
Poor communication equals poor inclusivity, or it equals exclusivity, because people aren't talking
right.
to each other. They may be talking at each other. They may be talking around each other, but people aren't communicating. People aren't communicating. And that is why we are having poor results in every area. So one of the things that I like to teach, even though I'm teaching diversity, or even though I'm teaching unconscious bias, I always teach a component of communication. I always teach a component of seeing, hearing, and validating each other, and using the words, our words, to see, to hear, and to validate other people, especially to validate their stories.
Mm,
I think part of the hostilities that we're having right now is we are denying everybody else's story. You
right.
know, I'm an African American. My story is the most important. Well, you know, I'm a Caucasian American. My story matters too. You know, no, it doesn't, because my story is more important. Your story doesn't even exist. And this is what we have,
Mm-hmm.
because we, each of us, we're not hearing the other person's story.
Right.
We're not
Right.
validating them. At the end of the day, that is who I am. My story is who I am. I'm not saying it's a perfect story, and I may have skewed it a little bit the way I see it. And so what I teach is to hear another person's story, hear them,
Mm,
hear them, validate them with your words. This is how we communicate. And once we do that, once we, you know, Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Once we seek to understand, the other party will be more likely to understand us.
mm.
But that's not how we do it. We do it like this. David, you don't understand me. Well, Star, you don't understand me. Well, why should I understand you, David, when you're not trying to understand me? Like I'm going to try to understand you first. That's what we have. And what
Right.
we
Right.
have is a failure to communicate.
Failure to
And so
communicate.
it's important for us to seek to hear, to see, and to understand, to validate everybody's story, because
Mm.
it's valid. Their stories are valid, and this is an important part of communication. So that's what I've been teaching lately.
Yeah. And you know, when you say story, sometimes a story is, you know, maybe your life experience and all those different kinds of things. But sometimes a story is just communicating a point.
Sure.
And sometimes two people can be having a conversation, but neither is understanding the point the other person is making. So we get miscommunication, although we're talking to each other. Two people are talking, but they're hearing two separate different things.
Exactly, exactly. When I work with speakers and when I work with corporate executives, that is a key thing that I focus on, and
Hmm.
find it ridiculous. Like I will say in this conversation, what is your point? What is your message? And do you know how many people don't know?
Yes, a lot.
People are talking, they don't even know what point they're trying to make. So naturally, when another person is hearing you, they're not getting it. I mean,
Right.
people do it in one-on-one conversations. People do it on the stage. I have, you know, professional speakers that I will talk to, and I'll go, excellent. What's your message? What is your point here? And they're rambling on. I'm like, that's not your point. See, that's why
Mhm.
your audience isn't getting it. It's an important thing for all of us to figure out what our point is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to figure out more than one way to say it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Not just say it louder, David, so you can get, because that's not helpful. But to communication is key. Poor communications, poor results.
Absolutely. Now we just talked about making a point. That leads me to bringing up a book that you wrote.
Ah,
And matter of fact, you got 2 volumes of it, and it's called STARPoints.
you mean these two?
Yeah. 31 strategies to illuminate your life, volumes 1 and 2. So tell us how you've made your point in STARPoints.
You know what? My mentor, Mr. Les Brown, always said to us, you never make a story without a point. You never tell us, you never tell a story without a point. You never make a point without a story. He told us that all the time. And so I make up stories all the time. You know, you may have noticed you asked me 4 questions. I gave you 4 stories.
Certainly did.
That's how I answer
Uh-huh.
questions. And so Star Points are short motivational messages designed to uplift and empower. And they're called Star Points because my name is Star and I'm about to make a point. All right. But when I used to host Les Brown's motivational show, I would do a little something in the beginning. And you're
Okay.
familiar with Andy Henriquez, right? You know
Yes, absolutely.
Andy very well. And so Andy is also from the Les Brown camp. You know, we met 10, 12 years ago back in the Les Brown days. And Andy said, you know what, Star, I'm going to do my own motivational show. Can you help me out for a couple of weeks? I'm like, absolutely. You know, why don't I give you 2 months and then, you know, you'll find someone. I stayed with him for 4 years.
Wow.
But anyway, so every Thursday, you know, Andy would do his motivational message, but I would make a point.
Okay.
I would make a point. And so over the course of 4 years, I came up with a few star points. And basically, they're just simple stories which carry a lesson. A lesson. Here's an example. I have one called Focus on the Grilled Cheese.
Okay.
That's the point. That's the title of the star point. And when my children were little, they loved grilled cheese sandwiches. And so of course, mommy's gonna make them a grilled cheese sandwich. And I gather all the ingredients. And you know, my children are cheese snobs, so it's not American cheese, it's like cheddar and Monterey Jack, whatever.
And
So I
what is
make
it? Gouda?
Gouda, my kids. I love those children. But anyway, so I'm making them the grilled cheese sandwich and everything is beautiful. I flip it over and baby, it looks good. It looks good. It's all golden brown and buttery and wonderful. And inevitably, David, I get distracted. When I turn it on, I get distracted. I'm going to go load the dishwasher. I'm going to go check my email, whatever. And one side would get burned. And this happens so often that when I would make a grilled cheese sandwich, my children would say to me, Mommy, focus on the grilled cheese. If I start taking a step to the left, Mommy, focus on the grilled cheese. If I'm like, I'll be back in a moment, they're like, Mommy, focus on the grilled cheese. And so I would have to stand there and focus on the grilled cheese so that I get the other side the same way. And I think that can be applied to our lives. How many times do we get a new idea, a new project? Oh my God, we are so excited and we take our time and we take our care and it's beautiful. First side is beautiful. And then we get distracted, right? And then we find some other bright, shiny object and this thing that we were working on gets ruined. It gets burned or undercooked or it gets ruined because we don't focus on the grilled cheese.
That's right.
So that's the point. That's the story. And these 2 books are filled with those kind of points and those kind of stories. They're very uplifting. They're very positive. I often suggest that people have it right by their bed, you know,
Okay.
Either last thing before they go to bed, read something positive, or first thing in the morning, you know, read something positive, as opposed to checking the news as the first thing or the last thing at night. So there
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, Star, you've given us so many positive points and positive discussions and positive stories. But this is a question I always ask my guests because I know it's going to help somebody. But what would you say is something that, like I said, you've done a lot, But are there any regrets about anything? Do you have a regret of something you didn't get done, something you didn't complete? What would you you got that look like? I got a few books of those, but what would you say is your biggest regret?
You know, my thought went immediately to shutting down my career,
Okay.
shutting down my voice
Mm,
to make other people feel happy,
okay.
to try to bring peace. You know, I'd say of all things that that would be my greatest regret, except that everything you go through makes you who you are.
Okay.
I'm proud of who I am. I am proud of the fact that I get to tell the story of reclaiming my voice at 20 after 25 years.
Mhm.
And I use that story to help other people reclaim their voices. So can I regret that really? So I don't know. Um, I don't know if I have that as a regret. Now, there are some things I've said to people, ways I've treated people,
Okay.
I absolutely regret. I absolutely regret. Um, no excuses. I did whatever I did, but there, people I've hurt that
Okay.
I regret. I would do those things differently. But the greatest, biggest one, I don't know that I would do it differently. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously, because of the experience that you got from it, what you learned, so you might not consider that a regret, and that's fine. You know, um, I want to close. We've had a great conversation today. This is
Yeah.
very, very, very inspiring. And as I close, I'd like for you to give this audience an inspirational message that they could take home with them.
Mm. So we are in a time right now where people are calling it unprecedented. This is unprecedented. We've never experienced, not in this generation, have we experienced what we are experiencing now with COVID-19, with the staggering death toll, with the civil unrest, with these polarizing hostilities. We are in a place we've never been to before. It is unprecedented. But here's what I say: in times that are unprecedented, we get to set the precedent.
Mm,
We get to set what this is going to mean. Again, when I was a baby lawyer and I had to do an argument for one of our cases, and they said, Star, go finds case law that supports our point of view. And I went and I looked and I didn't see anything that was exactly what we wanted to say. It wasn't exact, it was over here, maybe a little over here, but I couldn't find anything that said exactly what we wanted to do. And in the law, you always follow precedent. You always
mm,
follow what went before. And so
right.
I come to this attorney, my boss, and I love my boss. I hate the fact that I have to tell him that I failed. I come to him, I tell him what's going on, and he says to me, make it up. Make it up. This is the law. What are you talking about? Because, I'm fresh out of law school.
Uh-huh.
He's like, if you can't find the evidence that supports what you want, you get to make it up. And I say that that's where we are right now. We can't find evidence of how we're supposed to survive this.
Mm,
It's unprecedented. That means we get to set the precedent. We get to set what this means for us going forward. We get to set the precedent. So while we are going through this unprecedented time, set the precedent yourself. That would be my message.
wow. 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 What an inspirational message that is. Set it. If you can't find it, set the precedent yourself.
Yes.
Well, Star, I am so excited that you joined us today. But before we close out, how can we contact you on social media?
I am Star Bobatoon on Instagram. I'm Star Bobatoon on Facebook. I'm Star Bobatoon. Let's see, on LinkedIn, I'm Star Bobatoon. And if you'd like to send me an email, it's star@starbobatoon.com.
Bobatoon.
And if anyone is interested, I have a series on telling your story, on how to impact your story, whether it's your business story or a personal story. 5 steps to telling a captivating story. And if you're interested in that, send me an email and I can send that to you. It's a video series, or you can text the word "my story." You can text the word "my story" to 42828, and you can get that video series.
Well, Star, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for being on the show today. And this conversation was truly inspiring, truly uplifting. And I just know this audience is going to be inspired to take on what 2021 is going to bring to us. And we know that it's going to bring God's best. So as I say to all of my guests who come on the show, Star, you have gone beyond the culture. And we thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
All right, you take care. Now, if you want to continue to hear inspiring interviews like the one you heard today, I want you to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. Also, rate the show and please leave a comment. I would also love it if you would share this podcast with your friends to let them know that we're on. Finally, please go to our website at www.beyondtheculturepodcast.com, or you can email me at beyondtheculturepodcast@gmail.com. On the website, you can subscribe to the show and connect with me by leaving your email address. I'd love to hear from you. This is your host, Dr. David Walker, and we'll talk again on Beyond the Culture. Take care.